Hello, Ayman. Sorry, Adel, how you doing? All right?
Very well, thank you. And you?
I'm
Good
good, thank you
afternoon.
very much. Hi, Rekha, how you doing? Okay?
Very well, Rayhan, very well. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you very much.
We still have a few people joining. We already have about 50 online, and we still have people joining. So we'll just wait for maybe a minute more or two more to
No
just
problem.
let people join, and then Adil can start.
No problem. Hi, Mahmoud, how you doing? Okay?
All good, all good. Thank you for joining today.
No, thank you for inviting me. So much appreciated. While we wait, do you want me to send you my slides or should I just share it from my screen, Mahmoud?
You can share your screen.
Okay, that's
No
fine.
worries.
I think we can start, Adil.
Just 1 second. Just give me a minute.
Nakakonect ka na, Kois.
I can see Juanito. Hi, Juanito.
Hey, Rayhan. Yeah,
Where's Rahul? Is Rahul joining as well?
joining us. Yeah, I think he's just engaged for a couple of things. He'll join.
Fair enough.
Zrini and Lifna will be joining as well. I think they're setting up.
Okay, we can start. Rika, ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah, we can start now.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning or good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining for today's webinar, the Global Chamber. For some people that who doesn't know what is Global Chamber and why Global Chamber. Global Chamber, as the name says, we want it to be global. So we, the corporate group, we represent the chapter for the UAE, for the Global Chamber. That is a growing community of CEOs, directors, investors, professionals in more than 500 metros or cities and totally over 190 countries. What Global Chamber does is help members successfully to grow and connect across borders. Founded early 2014, head office in San Francisco, and there are different members such as exporters, service providers, government agencies, investors, entrepreneurs, and so forth. The challenge of the growing globally is complex for many organizations, for individuals, but I think going global nowadays is with the links and different associations that we are all part of it in professional businesses and corporates. So we are here in this platform where we can reach to different target markets, navigating into local regulations, such as today is one of the examples of the global regulations where it's applying on the United Arab Emirates for businesses. And also there are other global partners that we have to be connected through the business. The Global Chamber, again, it's easy and fast to do things such as connections with different people. We take the privilege of hosting these kind of webinars, or sometimes we do events to see the visibility of these individuals or businesses, whether they could find networking opportunities or they can get connected or expand to other markets. So we have the privilege to access to different cities and countries through the Global Chamber. Again, just as a highlight, this network or these connections help exporters, service providers, investors, the whole ecosystem of the business. Just talking about, there's some noise. If somebody could maybe put the microphone off. So today's discussion, we've got the guest speaker, Rayhan. Rayhan would be talking about the e-invoicing. That's the electronic invoicing that, the government of UAE with the digital approach and e-government and so forth. The country is looking to shift from the traditional paper, such as PDF invoices and so forth, to make it very much of a cost-effective and handling invoices in a different manner. And this becoming a mandatory business compliance for the businesses operating in the UAE. We have seen this practice introduced in Saudi Arabia in two phases, actually. The e-invoicing system called in Saudi Arabia called Fatura, the Arabic word for invoicing. That is now mandatory on the taxpayers. So the first phase, which was launched in December 2021, required the businesses part of their compliance to use it. And the second phase was introduced in January 2023. That was integrated more with the tax. I think I will leave the microphone to Rayhan just to cover up overall, and then maybe we will take answers at the end. Rayhan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Adil, and thank you for that introduction. I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, so I think this topic is probably quite relevant for you, even if you're not based in the UAE. And the reason why I say that is because e-invoicing is a global phenomenon in a sense that it's not just the UAE that's doing it, but there's a number of countries who are rolling it out and who've already rolled it out at the moment as well. And one of the things that I'm going to talk about is I'm going to go do a bit of a deep dive into what e-invoicing is, as well as how it works in the UAE and what's coming in terms of other countries as well. And I think that will be quite relevant for a lot of the audience as well. So I'll just give you a quick introduction about myself. My name is Rayhan. I am the founder of Taxstar. It's a tax technology company. We've developed corporation tax software in the UAE, and we also will be developing an e-invoicing solution as well. I'm also the co-founder of Alpha Pro Partners. We're an accounting firm based in Dubai, and we also have offices in Saudi and in the UK as well. One of the things about Taxstar is we want to make accountants more superhuman through technology as well. Now, today's agenda, I'll go over the e-invoicing laws. I'll go through the timelines and what's required from a compliance point of view, how businesses should prepare, and beyond compliance, what kind of things do you want to think about as a business to help you cope with the legislation and also use it as a opportunity to grow your business, improve processes, help you, optimize from that point of view. Now, e-invoicing is not a new thing. It's been around for quite some time, but with businesses, it's been quite. It's a new thing for many small and medium-sized businesses. It's quite a new phenomena. And what is e-invoicing? Now, e-invoicing is not an invoice that you send from your accounting system to your customer through PDF, or it's an invoice that you send through Shopify or Stripe. E-invoice is an electronic invoice that has a piece of code which is embedded into it, and that piece of code is in an XML format which is readable. So effectively, what happens is when I send you an invoice, that invoice goes directly into your accounting system. It reads it, it prepares a bill straight away without you having to enter that information onto your accounting system. And that means that it saves a lot of processing time in terms of getting an invoice. Now, one of the things that the UAE, there's a number of different ways that you can do e-invoicing. One is a centralized and one's a decentralized method. The UAE has chosen the decentralized method using the PEPL network. Now, the PEPL network is basically a network where you send the e-invoice to, and then your customer or your supplier receives it or sends it to you as well, and it gets recorded into their system. Now, PEPL is not just used for invoicing. You can use it for lots of other things, but in this situation, it's used for invoicing. One of the things that they want to do in PEPL is they want to reduce fraud. And how do you reduce fraud? One example is when you send an invoice via email, it can get flagged up by the email system and it could be perceived to be fraud, because I'm sure a lot of us have had an email from a suspicious person asking for money, and they've put an invoice on there as well. So the PEPL or e-invoicing eliminates that. So instead of an invoice going through a person to a system, it goes directly to a system from between two systems in that process as well. As I mentioned, it improves operational efficiencies. And some of the opportunities for businesses once you have e-invoices enabled is if you want to get invoice financing, for example, it's a lot more accessible because the invoices that you've issued cannot be fake invoices. They are true invoices because you've sent an invoice through the PEPL network to your customer and they've received it. So it gives you a lot more opportunity to finance your invoices if you have large receivables in your books. You can also use it for sending out POs. So if I send you a PO and then you accept it, I can send the invoice matches a PO, and you've eliminated a lot of processes where you're having to check the PO against the invoice. It all ties back. And that's something that PEPL can do. And that's something that you can do with your systems once you've become e-invoice certified. And then, sorry, there's some background noise. I think if everyone put themselves on mute. And then this is a global phenomenon as well. So some of the things that you want to think about is, although it's not just the UAE that's rolling it out, Saudi Arabia has already rolled it out. Singapore, Malaysia has rolled out e-invoicing as well. there's an agreement called the PEPO agreement in Europe, where by 2030, all of the European states will be under e-invoicing. The UK has also announced that they are going to implement e-invoicing by around 2031. They haven't yet announced a date, but that's the timelines that they're looking at. And there's many countries around the world that's going to be, rolling this out. Now, this is something that's relevant, even if you're not based in the UAE, your home country is going to be very relevant because it is going to come soon. In terms of the UAE market, so the effective date is the 1st of July 2026. So from the 1st of July, you have to, if you are conducting B2B or B2G, B2B is business to business, B2G is business to government. If you are conducting these types of activities, then you have to be able to be e-invoice ready by the 1st of July 2026. B2C transactions are excluded. So if you've got a coffee shop, if you've got a retail shop, if you've got e-invoice, if you've got a e-commerce business, then you would be exempt from issuing e-invoicing, but you still need to receive e-invoices because your customers may be B2B as well. As I mentioned, we are using in the UAE a decentralized model. What that basically means is in Saudi, when you send an invoice to your customer, it goes to Zatka, they approve it and then they send it to your customer. In the UAE, it's a different process. You send the invoice directly to your customer, but what happens through the PEPL network is that FTA, they get a copy of that invoice as well. So you don't need to wait for an approval to happen in between. It goes directly to your customer and the FTA gets a copy of that. And that happens through ASPs. So an ASP is a service provider that is an endpoint between the PEPL network and your accounting software. So you need to make sure you have an ASP when you're issuing e-invoices as well. This law is not new. It was the technical requirements was drafted last year. It's going through a fast phase of rollout because we have to go live by 2026, and the draft legislation has been shared. There's going to be a final rollout by the end of this year where we will know exactly, what type of companies are required. Is there a limit to the revenue threshold in terms of is there going to be a waived approach in terms of the e-invoicing strategy? Does every single company have to have e-invoicing capabilities? Because remember, even if you're B2C, you still may have customers who are B2B who are sending e-invoices as well. So there's still some ambiguities that needs to be defined, and that will happen later on in this year. Now, I mentioned this concept of an ASP. So effectively what happens in the flow of sending invoice is you will issue an invoice to your supplier's ASP. The supplier's ASP will send it to the buyer's ASP, and then the buyer would then enter into the accounting system and then submit it to the FTA. So having an ASP is going to be very important as part of your strategy to be compliant with e-invoicing. An ASP is simply a technology company that is authorized by the Ministry of Finance to push e-invoices within the PEPL network. We at Taxa, we're looking to apply to be one, and we're going through that process as well. Now, one of the key points that you need to take into consideration is that everything happens in real time. So as soon as I send you an invoice, we get it into your system straight away. It's secure because it's going through the PEPL network. So third parties are not able to see what's going on third parties cannot see your invoice data. Now, when you're sending invoice through email is almost like an open postcard. Anyone can see what's on your email. And so going through the PEPL network is a lot more secure from that point of view. And there's a standardized format called the PINT AE. The PINT is more technical from a e-invoicing point of view. What the PINT means is every country has their own PINT, and within the PINT file, you have things like what's on the invoice and what type of invoices you're sending. In the UAE, they've already created 16 different ways that you can invoice. One is standard rated supply. one is a continuous supply, one, for example, is an export. So they've got different types of invoices that you can issue, and they all fall within the PINT AE file as well. As I mentioned with the PIN, there's 135 data fields on there as well, which takes into consideration all the data fields that you'd put on an invoice and the different types of invoices that you would have as well. And again, your ERP system or your accounting software needs to be aligned with this PIN file. Again, if you've got an ASP and it integrates to your accounting system, then I think that would mean that you would comply. You would need to do some sort of or the accounting team or the IT team would need to do some sort of assessment to ensure that your system can take that data, or you may need to make some changes if it's not compatible with it. Now, if you're familiar with VAT, all of the aspects on VAT in the UAE is relevant with e-invoicing. So if you think about some of the things that are important in the mandatory fields on a VAT invoice, they are incorporated in the e-invoice format as well. But you can also add other information as well, like payment terms, POs, and delivery references. Some of these things are not mandatory on a tax invoice, but you can add them to an e-invoice as well. In terms of compliance, what does this mean for you? So once you're able to send e-invoices, an e-invoice is a document that cannot be changed. So as soon as you send it, it's done. If you send an invoice through an accounting system, if there's a mistake, sometimes you can just, if your customer picks up a mistake, you can go back and just make changes straight away. Or you may be in a position where you're haggling the price and you're saying, I want this price, no, I want that price. You send an invoice, your customer says, no, I want a 10% discount. Those types of scenarios will be eliminated when you go through e-invoicing, because once you send the e-invoice, that's it, you can't change it. It's a document that is that is sent to your customer, and that's it. So you need to make sure that the processes before you send the invoices are modified or changed. So then if there is a to and fro process in terms of, I've sent you an invoice and you're having to change the prices because of maybe inflation, maybe because you're still going through the negotiation process, that all of that needs to be done before you actually send out the invoice, because it cannot be changed after that. Good news or bad news is your VAT calculation will be correct in real time. So as soon as you send out your e-invoice, the FTA gets a copy of that invoice, so they can practically pre-populate your VAT return. Now, one of the downsides for many businesses, and this is something that they're going to have to think through, is if you've sent an invoice out and you haven't collected it for more than, say, 3 months, then you're going to have to pay the VAT on that invoice before you get paid. So that's something that is a problem, and it still is a problem for many businesses even now. But once you, again, as I mentioned, once you issue that invoice, there's nothing you can do, right? You have to pay the VAT on that invoice because you've already issued it as well. So that's something that you need to think about as well. When you're choosing a ASP, the accredited service provider for e-invoice, you need to make sure that they integrate with your accounting system and they understand your accounting system. There will be lots of ASPs out there, but you need to make sure you choose the right one for you, depending on what industry you're at and what system you're using. In terms of preparing for 2026 and for e-invoicing, I think, look, realistically, you want to start thinking about this now, because it depends on what kind of business you have and how complex it is. If you are a business that does all different types of invoicing, whether it's standard rated, zero rated, you do exports, you sell overseas, you do a mixture of services and physical products, then you need to start planning now. And the reason why I say that is because you're almost re-engineering your processes for invoicing when e-invoicing comes in. Because if for example, there's lots of different reasons why you're re-engineering. So for example, if you were someone who was sending pro forma invoices before because you didn't want to send out the tax invoice because you don't want to pay the VAT until you get paid, you can't do that anymore, right? So you need to think about what is the impact of me sending out an e-invoice the moment my tax point has occurred. And that may mean a lot of changes within your business. There's other situations where does my accounting system accept an e-invoice? And if it doesn't, I need to be able to do that. You also need to be able to look at your system and make sure that it can take on e-invoicing and it can send e-invoices as well, because otherwise you need to update your system or change it. Because what happens with e-invoicing is there are a number of mandatory fields that are filled in. If your system is limited, let's say the mandatory fields are 18, for example, right? And let's say your system can only take on 16. It means that your system would not be recording 2 mandatory fields that are required for e-invoicing as well. So, and that can take some time to kind of identify the issue, change to a new system, and then start the e-invoicing from 2026. So this is why it's important to kind of think about these things now, so you're prepared well in advance. You don't want to be in a position where you're not able to send out invoices because your system's not ready. This is also a revolution for many people within business as well. So training is very important, not just on a not just on the technical sides, i.e., how do I send out an e-invoice, or how can I make sure my customer understands what I'm sending to them so they can record it in the system, but also different aspects of the business would need to get training. So even if you're not just if you're in accounting, if you're within sales, if you're within procurement, if you're within general departments within the business, you'd want to get training on e-invoicing, because let's say, for example, someone in HR pays for recruitment services and they're not getting the service because the e-invoice has not been issued by their customers, right? They'll need to understand why that is and be able to ask the right questions within their customer and internally to ensure that this invoice has been sent out so they can fulfill their service. So it's important that, nowadays in the UAE, everyone knows that invoices have to be signed and stamped. Sometimes people do, sometimes people don't, but there needs to be some sort of an understanding and awareness of what is an e-invoice. Just how back in 2018, everyone knew that you need to add VAT, and we now know what a VAT invoice is and the various components of that. We now need to re-educate the workforce to ensure that they understand what an e-invoice is, so you can get paid and you can also make sure you are paying for services that are vital for you as well. And then some of the other things is, staying up to date with the FTA guidance. So the rules in the UAE are changing phenomenally. So you've had the VAT rules come in 2018, had corporation tax that kicked in last year, that everyone's doing the tax returns now. And now next year you've got e-invoicing that you need to comply with. So you need to have a mindset within your organizations where you're constantly learning, or you're able to learn what the new rules are in terms of corporation tax, e-invoice, and there's other things that change quite often as well. And so long as you have that mindset of changing and you have processes in place in the company where you're constantly training your staff, you'll be able to stay up to date with all of the latest changes. The companies that do not stay ahead of the guidance, they tend to fall behind, and they're the ones who tend to have a lot of problems in terms of keeping their business going from a efficiency and from an operational point of view as well. So learning is very important from not just for e-invoicing, but business in general as well. Now, I know there are a few questions, and we'll take questions at the end. And I'm almost finished the presentation, so feel free to jot your questions down, and we can take them on after the session. Beyond compliance, what are the benefits of e-invoice? Now, from a government point of view, this means that there's more tax that's collected by the government because there's no longer a situation where you're writing invoices or you're creating fictitious invoices, or you're trying to claim VAT that's not there. So from at the government level, this means that there's a lot more transparency in the process. And it also means that they can collect money, more tax revenues, which ultimately benefits the citizens and the residents of that country, because they would reinvest that money into for the country. So I think that's the first thing we need to think about. Apart from that, you should have faster payments. You should have better cash flow, because there's no longer the excuse from your customer when you're chasing an invoice. Did you receive my invoice? They're no longer going to say, I didn't get your invoice, or the invoice is in the wrong format, or you haven't put the right information on there. Because with the invoicing, everything's prescribed now. So from a cash flow point of view, there's one or two less excuses that your customer can come to you at, so they can't pay you on time. So that's a big game changer. Errors would be reduced, and e-invoicing is actually supposed to lower the cost of invoicing. In the beginning, obviously, there's going to be some money and time you have to invest in preparing your system and being able to be ready for e-invoicing. But in the long run, it will lower your costs. Why? Because your accountant is spending less time inputting data and checking data as well, right? And when you're sending out invoices from your company to your customers, there's less touch points in that process, which means that process is smoother, and it goes to when you raise an invoice or when you receive an invoice, it's just a lot more faster to process it now. PEPL is supposed to be cross-border. So if you are invoicing another country, which is also PEPL administered, then cross-border transactions will happen instantaneously as well. So, for example, Malaysia is also using the PEPL network, so is Singapore, so is Europe. So if you have customers in those countries and you're sending invoices and they're sending you invoices, you can reap the benefits of having an e-invoice system that automates a lot of the processes as well. And obviously, it's eco-friendly, you reduce paper. It's more sustainable, and it's better for the environment from a invoicing point of view as well. That's all for my presentation for now. I tried not to go too deep into the technical side, because we can get technical in terms of e-invoicing. I tried to make it relevant for business owners. I know a lot of us are entrepreneurs as well. Feel free to ask any questions. Happy to answer them. I know there's a few hands up, so yeah, or you can put them in the chat, or you can ask them out loud if you want to as well.
Rayhan, we do have a couple of questions on chat. One of the questions is, when is the FTA expected to release the list of ASPs? And has any company in the UAE so far claimed to have become an ASP?
Good question. The ASP process, we're going through it ourselves, and it's not a straightforward process. It's quite a detailed process. The reason why registering for ASP, the detailed process, is because of a number of things. Number one, you have to be PEPL registered. Number two, you need to have ISO certifications. You also need to have certain requirements when you register for PEPL. You need to be able to connect to the network and be able to send information from there as well, and receive information from the PEPL network. And so it's quite a challenging process. And I don't expect many companies to be registered, before the end of the year. Maybe there may be one or two companies that are registered, and those are going to be the big, the very big companies, because they need to support the large organizations, the very, very large organizations at the moment. I have not come across anyone who's been approved yet. I haven't checked the list I haven't checked the list for a few weeks, but I haven't come across anyone who's been registered yet, but I'm pretty sure by the end of the year we'll start seeing more and more providers who are available. That doesn't mean you can't start your compliance. It doesn't mean that you can't start the process of being able to be compliant with e-invoice, because everything's about the PINT UAE file, right? If you are able to receive and send the PINT UAE file, then that's the main criteria to be able to be e-invoicing compliant from a technology point of view. Everything else is process, right? So is your team ready? Is your accounting system ready? Is your ERP system ready? Those things you can start now, because those things are, in terms of what's needed, that's already documented.
We have two people who had raised their hands. Renfer had raised.
Client
Renfer, if you would like, would you like to ask your question now? Okay, then I think the next person who raised his hand was Expokent.
Hi.
Maybe you could
I
unmute.
apologize. I tried to change my name. I didn't succeed. But thank you very much, Mr. Rayhan and Mr. Adel, for a great presentation. My name is Muhammad Yaouz Omar. I am from Iraq. I am a member of Global Chamber also, Iraq advisor. So I am located in Turkey. Turkey started its e-invoice journey 10 years ago. So, and in the beginning of 2025, they are 100% e-invoice country. There is no paper invoice are valid now. So, my question is, how long do you think it will take the UAE to be 100% e-invoice country? And also, my invitation to you, Mr. Rayhan and Mr. Adel, to Turkey, to if you need any how you say information or from Turkish experience, because they started about 10 years ago and now they are full e-invoice. And also Iraq is started to talk about e-invoices. The Central Bank of Iraq are one of their plans from the e-government side are looking for the e-invoice system. So we are also interested to have a conversation with you. And also I am representing a company in Iraq, Turkish company who provides e-invoice service. We are serving about 300,000 Turkish companies providing integrator. So you are more than welcome to have a conversation after this meeting, and we would like to take it from here. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll take it offline on the connection and what we can do. But Rayhan, if you have any comments on here or add something.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. And Turkey is one of my favorite countries, and Iraq has lots of rich history. I'd love to visit it one day. So thank you very much for that invitation. I think in terms of speed of implementation, I recently went to a PEPL conference about a few months ago, and the ministry, someone from the ministry was there as well, from the UAE ministry, presenting the UAE strategy. They did mention that they may roll it out in phases in terms of e-invoice, and that could be that the very large companies start first, and then it kind of drops down, similar to the same method as the Saudi. So in Saudi, you got phase one, phase two. Phase one was kind of e-invoice light, so you just put a QR code on your invoice and that's it. Phase two is when you had to connect to Zatka, but they did it in waves. So the first wave was, big businesses making 3 billion, and then every quarter that it would drop. And I think now it's gone down to 10 million reals of revenue, where it's mandatory for you to register for phase two. So I'm speculating they could go down that route. funnily enough, there's other countries where in that conference we had all of the different European countries presenting their method of rolling it out. Croatia, their target was to roll it out within 6 months, right? From telling all of the businesses that they're doing, they're rolling out e-invoice to actually implementing it. So, and that's a very big challenge for a government to be able to implement. But they've gone ahead with that apparently as well. I think the UAE, we're in a very interesting situation where we rolled out VAT in 2018, and at the time, many people thought that we weren't going to be able to cope with VAT because everything was done on paper, and you had so many businesses that didn't even have an accounting system. But everyone, in the end, they were able to cope and adapt to that change. If you look at COVID, we were one of the probably only countries in the world that was able to cope with COVID and come out of it very quickly. And I think with e-invoicing, I think we have a tendency to be able to adapt and change very quickly, businesses in the UAE. So although it may happen in waves, I wouldn't be surprised if we have to go compliant from the 1st of July. And I'll be very surprised if many businesses aren't able to cope with that, because we do have a tendency to be resilient and to be able to adapt with change as well.
Thanks, Rayhan. Another question
very
from
much.
Janine is, where are guidelines or checklists to start now with the preparation and getting ready?
So the Ministry of Finance has a lot of information on their website at the moment, and you can get a lot of information from there. You can get a lot of kind of the draft law is there as well. Now, just bear in mind that with the invoicing, you need someone technical to help you, because you have to look at the PINT file and make sure that your system is able to be compatible enough to read that file or send that file out. So you will need someone technical to help you. We can support you. We can get partners who can help you as well. But it is something that you would need. One aspect of it is non-technical, which is being able to teach the workforce what an e-invoice is and how to send it and what is required on the e-invoice, information required. The technical side is between two systems communicating into the Pebbles network, and that only a technical kind of person can help you with that.
Give an opportunity to Renfer Razak, who's raised their hands. Would you like to speak now? Otherwise, we'll go to the next question. How about credit notes? Can you also issue it?
You can issue credit notes. Like I said, there are 16 ways to submit an invoice through the e-invoice network, right? Obviously, credit note is one of them, but I mentioned earlier, you cannot change an invoice, right? The kind of counter to that is, I can issue credit notes. But also bear in mind, there are rules around issuing credit notes as well. You can't just invoice and issue a credit note just like that. Even in the current VAT rules as well, there are restrictions on that. So the problem now is the moment you issue an invoice, it's done. You can't change it at all, right? And similarly with credit notes, once you issue a credit note, it's issued. There's nothing, you can't reverse it or change it or do anything else as well.
Another question from Dan again is, what if we have both B2B and B2C? In fact, Dan, I think you've raised your hand. Maybe you can speak now. If you can unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello again. My question is actually because earlier on the slide you mentioned that most likely those with B2B and B2G will be the affected. So what if in our case we have both B2B sales or supplies, and at the same time we also have B2C, no? And then same related to that question as well is what if we have purchases, or we purchase service from suppliers that are small service providers. So I'm not sure if they will qualify also for this e-invoicing. So what will be the impact to our company if ever? So we will not going to receive a pint from them, most likely if they will not be registered for e-invoicing. So how will it happen? Will there be any reconciliation, or what's your take on that? Thank you.
So great question. Thank you for that. And this is something that we are debating internally as well, because there hasn't been clarifications on whether let me just start from the beginning, then I'll answer the second part. So the first part is B2B, B2C, B2G. So B2B, business to business invoices, yes, you have to be compliant by July 2026. B2G, for sending invoices to government, again, you have to be compliant by 1st of July 2026. B2C, you don't need to have a system that's e-invoicing compliant currently. B2C, typical industries are, e-commerce, restaurants, retail, etc. Now, there are businesses that do B2B and B2C, right? So, for example, a restaurant might sell to the customers, they may sell to, I don't know, a catering company as well, right? And that catering company is B2B. In that situation, you would need to register, you'd need to be e-invoicing compliant, because what will happen is you'd send out the invoice, but the invoice won't be an e-invoice when you're sending out the B2C. But when you're sending out the B2B invoice, it will be an e-invoice that you're sending. Now, bear in mind that when you're sending a e-invoice, it's a piece of code, right? So if you've sent the top side, which is, let's say, the PDF, they'll still receive the PDF. They just won't read the XML code on the invoice. Now, the other interesting point you mentioned was, okay, let's say I'm B2C. Let's say I'm a restaurant, but my customers are wholesalers, right? And they're only dealing with B2B. What happens then? Right? Because they're going to send me e-invoices, but I don't have the ability to read the e-invoice, and I'm not going to be processing them because I don't have a system. I'm not required to have a system that is e-invoicing compatible. This is where we need a bit more clarification from the Ministry of Finance, because at the moment we don't know how that looks. Because the dilemma here is you either roll out e-invoicing for every single company or you don't, right? And they specifically mention it's B2B and B2G. So I would say watch this space. We need to wait until the end of the year once they've really released the rules to understand how that impacts, someone like yourself, or a B2C business that does have B2B transactions that they're receiving.
Thanks, Rayhan. We'll take questions for another 5 more minutes. Another question by Sujiva is, are there any specific solutions for SMEs?
I know, Sujiwa, how you doing? So Sujiwa, you also uses Zero. And I spoke to Zero, and I'm not sure if they're going to be doing a e-invoice add-on for this market, but there will be other providers that interact with that are ASPs, right? So at the moment, you've got a number of players who are going to have a solution. So you've got Thomson Reuters, you've got ClearTax. I know that WAFEC will have their own e-invoice solution within their business, and I'm sure Zoho will build one as well within their accounting system. QuickBooks Zero, I'm not sure, because they're global businesses. But we will have, we as in Taxstar, we are applying to be an ASP, and we will interact with. We'll have an API with Xero and QuickBooks.
Thank you, Rayhan. Thank you.
And other question is, what all modifications are required in the accounting software for making it ASP?
So the modifications on your accounting software is basically, in a nutshell, it's can it store the data that it's receiving from an invoice, or can it generate the invoice that needs to be sent to an ASP? Because there are certain additional fields that needs to be filled in. And if it can't fill it in, it can't send out. If it sends out an e-invoice, those fields will be blank. So it's those kind of things that the accounting system needs to be able to do. Now, it seems like a very simple thing, but if you've got a sophisticated ERP system and you need to change one or two fields, that can actually sometimes be a very big project that you have to undertake. And so planning it ahead is very important. So you can understand, is this the right system for me, or do I need to switch to something else? Or what can I do to make sure my system can send and receive e-invoices as well? And ASP is basically a system, a technology or system that connects to your accounting system, right? So the ASP is not something that won't be able to pull in the data or push the data. It's your system that needs to be able to connect with the ASP that's going to be the problem.
Thank you, Rayhan. One last question. What about sales return?
Sales return, again, is part of one of the kind of invoice types. So you have a number of different invoice types. You have, standardized tax invoice, you have commercial invoice, self-billing credit notes as well. So it will fall in one of those types of categories of invoicing within the data dictionary. So obviously, one thing I'd say is that sometimes the name of certain terminologies is different. So you need to know exactly what the sales return, what is the substance of that document, and then map it to the relevant document within the data dictionary. I studied and worked in the UK, and then I came to the UAE. Sometimes terminologies are slightly different. So the sales return would then be mapped to the specific type of document within the data dictionary that you would then be able to send the invoice from or receive.
I think we don't have much time for anything else unless someone has a question right now. I would like to request anybody else who has questions, they can always write to Rayhan or us.
You're on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rayhan. Thank you, everybody. I think we don't have time for much more now. So if there are any questions, I'd like to invite you all to reach out to us. We put down our email ID there. It's marketing@cbs-ue.ae. Rayhan, I'd like to request you if you could also just put it on chat, the email ID that people can reach out to you. So I'll request Adil to take over. Adil, even Doug has joined, I believe. So maybe we'll a shout out to Doug.
Just so you know, you can contact me through CBS as well. So if you have any questions, just reach out to them and they'll reach out to me.
Yeah, thanks for everybody for joining today. I mean, as mentioned, the whole purpose of the Global Chamber and through the corporate group is to work together and either introduce a few regulations, compliance, everything in the region, how to do business, or else maybe we have upcoming events. You can follow us on our social media platforms where we do events and connecting people and looking for opportunities and so forth. So thank you very much, and we will get connected in another occasion.
Thank you, everyone. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good presentation.
Thank you, Reka.
Hey, thanks, Doug. I
Thank you.
thought you would speak. Thanks for joining. I think it's a little early for you.
I actually just missed the time. I was around, but I didn't.
Okay.
I just somehow had the time wrong. And then I just realized it. So, but I